Get on the ground. Can you believe it? A man in a cheap, knockoff security vest, looking like he raided a discount costume bin, screams this at my 78-year-old grandfather, who's just standing there, clutching nothing but a harmless watering hose. The nerve of this guy! Sirens wail in the distance, piercing the air like a warning. We didn't know we needed. My mom screaming her lungs out, pure panic in her voice, and just as this fake cop, let's call him Ken, starts to realize he stepped into a mess way bigger than his ego, two black SUVs screech to a halt right in front of us. Tires smoking, doors flying open out steps my uncle's FBI unit, guns drawn, looking like they're ready to wage war. No kidding! This isn't some Hollywood blockbuster, folks. This is real life. The insane result of a Karen-backed fake HOA thinking they could play militia in the wrong neighborhood. Freeze frame right there. Yep, that's me. The guy whose private well this power-tripping Karen tapped into to illegally water her precious garden. What did I do about it? Oh, I flushed her whole system with sewage. Yes, sewage, and trust me, that was just the beginning of this wild emotional roller coaster. Wait a second, how do you even pull something like that off without breaking the law? And how does she not notice the stench? You're probably wondering that right now, aren't you? Let's rewind 2 months earlier to set the stage. Picture this. I'm just trying to keep my head above water, living in my late mom's old house, a place still echoing with her memory, helping take care of my sweet, quiet grandfather while I job hunt. Grad school burnout had me fried, and the post-pandemic job market, total chaos. My grandpa, though he's a Korean War vet, soft-spoken but tough as nails, with a garden so perfect. It's like something out of a fairy tale. Seriously, the local bees probably send him thank you notes for all those flowers. This neighborhood was supposed to be a peaceful little retirement haven, supposed to. I say because, oh boy, did that dream get shattered fast. Enter Karen. Not just any Karen, oh no. This is Super Karen. Blonde bob bouncing like she's auditioning for a shampoo commercial, clipboard practically fused to her hand, a purse so massive it could hide a small satellite dish or maybe a whole spy network, who knows. Her voice? Imagine a smoke alarm that's malfunctioning, shrieking at a pitch that could wake the dead. She'd crowned herself president of the Neighborhood Standards Committee, a title she made up out of thin air because, newsflash, it didn't exist. She swore up and down we were all part of an HOA. Were we? Heck no. No official papers, no board, no city approval, just Karen, her trusty printer, and this unshakable, terrifying belief that she was destined to rule us all. Can you imagine the audacity? At first, it was almost funny little notes taped to doors whining about trash cans not being perfectly aligned, passive, aggressive jabs about garden shed paint tones being non-compliant. Grandpa just chuckled at it. He'd survived artillery barrages in the war. Karen's Comic Sans threats weren't about to rattle him. But then came Ken, her new boyfriend, and oh my gosh, things took a turn. This guy struts in wearing camo cargo shorts, a vest screaming security even though nobody hired him seriously. Who gave him that job? An aviator so dark he might as well be staring into another dimension. He walked like he'd binged every episode of Cops twice. But his legal authority? About as solid as a soggy paper towel. And the worst part? He carried a weapon hidden at first, but bulging under that vest like a secret he was dying for someone to ask about. Creepy, right? The first time I met Ken, I was trimming the hedges, minding my own business, as usual when he strolls up, barking nonsense into a walkie-talkie. Alone, talking to nobody. He stops, squints at me like I just insulted his entire existence and goes, "Do you have a permit for that tool?" I'm sorry, what? You mean the hedge clippers? I ask, totally dumbfounded. He nods, all serious, like I just confessed to a crime. Manual cutting tools can pose a safety risk if improperly maintained. HOA regs require annual inspection. I couldn't help it. I had to ask, "What HOA?" He leans in, whispering like he's revealing the secrets of the universe. "It's real, just not everyone's aware yet." I bolted inside and laughed for 5 straight minutes, tears streaming down my face. Grandpa didn't laugh, though. He just peered out the window, his wise old eyes narrowing, and said, "Guys like him don't stay funny forever." Oh, how right he was. Sure enough, the next week, we get our first official notice of violation. Get this, Grandpa's little American flag in the flower bed? Excessively patriotic, they said, and wait for it, could trigger international tensions. I'm not making this up. Karen printed that gem in Comic Sans, no less. Then came the noise complaints about Grandpa's sprinkler, his tiny, barely audible sprinkler. I recorded it. It was quieter than a whisper. Ken didn't care. He claimed Grandpa's weaponized water distribution was disrupting community auditory harmony. What in the world does that even mean? I asked him, and he just handed me a citation and some ridiculous pamphlet called Understanding Tactical Landscaping. I was floored. I wanted to brush it off, ignore these clowns, and move on, but then I saw Grandpa hesitate. He was starting to feel harassed, and it broke my heart. That garden wasn't just plants to him, it was the last thing he and Grandma built together before she passed, a living memory of their love. Seeing him pause before turning on that hose, my blood boiled. How dare they mess with him? So I got serious, started documenting every absurd moment, videos, photos, timestamp nonsense. I made a folder called HOA Hellscape and backed it all up to the cloud. Little did I know, the real storm was brewing. Karen, in all her so-called infinite wisdom, decided she wanted a community irrigation system. Sounds nice, right? Except plot twist. Instead of getting permits or using legit funds, she and Ken secretly rerouted pipes from properties with wells, including ours. Our private well, the one Grandpa dug himself decades ago, a piece of his legacy. They tapped into it without a word, all to water her ridiculous rose maze. She called it the Zen Zone, a hedge labyrinth straight out of a bad gardening magazine. I only caught on when our water pressure tank started acting funky. Then the utility bills spiked. Then, oh no, Grandpa's tomato plants started wilting because of the inconsistent flow. My heart sank seeing those plants droop. I marched over to confront Karen, and she just smiles, and says, "We're all in this together. Water sharing is the neighborly thing." Oh, no, you don't, lady. You don't steal from a veteran and call it neighborly. I checked her setup. Turns out she'd botched a backflow preventer. Perfect. I rigged it so her garden line pulled from a tank I filled with gray water, old dishwater, laundry rinse, even a splash from the septic pump. I dubbed it Community Compost Tea and let it stew. She didn't notice a thing. Her roses turned brown, her maize got soggy, and she blamed it on airborne toxins from a neighbor's barbecue. I couldn't stop grinning. I bided my time, then bam, flushed the whole system. Take that! 2 hours later, Karen's in her backyard shrieking at Ken to do something. He storms over to our place, fists clenched, demanding to inspect our infrastructure. Grandpa's calmly watering his lilies, those beautiful lilies, when Ken loses it. I'm halfway down the driveway when I hear it. Get on the ground. Ken's got a pistol drawn. My grandpa freezes, hose dripping, and my mom bursts out the door, screaming like her world's collapsing, because it was. I dive behind the mailbox, hit record, and my phone buzzes. It's my Uncle FBI Counterterrorism Division. I'd spilled the whole Karen and Ken saga to him at Thanksgiving, and now I text him 3 desperate words: gun, Grandpa, now. He fires back, Ida, 5 minutes. Oh, thank God. Ken had no clue what was coming. He thought he was king, thought we were terrified, and for a heartbeat, we were. But then roar. 2 black SUVs tear in, tires screeching, doors slamming open, My uncle and his team leap out, fully geared, guns ready. Karen's screams hit a new octave. Ken freezes, his gun trembling. And just as they yell, "Drop it! You won't believe this!" the hose slips from Grandpa's hand and splashes Ken right in the shin. Poetic justice? Oh, it tastes like swamp water and it's delicious. But hold on thinking it's over? Nope. An FBI agent pulls out a folder, locks eyes with Karen, and says, "MAAM, you're under investigation too. And it's not just about the water." Wait, what? You'd think the story ends with the bad guy cuffed and hauled off, right? Neighbors clapped, Karen wailed. Grandpa sipped lemonade while paramedics checked his blood pressure. Classic happy ending. But no, that was just the warm-up. While Ken sulked in the back of an SUV like a kid who lost his candy, the agents didn't pack up. Oh no, they were digging deeper. One flips open a thick folder, turns to Karen with that icy, polite tone that chills your spine, and asks, "MAAM, can we talk about your financial activities tied to the Homeowners Association?" Karen blinks like a fish, just slapped her, and squeaks, "What financial activities?" Her voice climbs to opera star panic. The agent, cool as ever, says, "We've got records of monetary exchanges, unregistered dues collections, and potentially fraudulent docs. We'd like to clarify a few things." Boom. Just like that. The fake HOA queen starring in a federal nightmare. I didn't see that coming, did you? I thought they'd nab Ken, confiscate his toy gun, maybe slap Karen with a fine for her printer power trip. But no, when you scam thousands in fake dues, bully seniors out of their pension money, and forge official-looking papers, you're not just in trouble, you're in deep. Karen stumbled over every legal tripwire like a drunk giraffe, and now the FBI's on her tail. What a twist. Can you believe it? The investigation kicked off right there on the front lawn, smack in front of Karen's precious rose maze, and, oh my gosh, had it started to rot. Literally. The whole center had collapsed into a disgusting, muddy swamp, festering with sewage water-fed root rot thanks to my little community compost tea stunt. The smell? Oh, it was so bad it made a local raccoon puke its guts out. I watched it happen with my own eyes. Nature itself was gagging, rejecting her so-called landscaping masterpiece. A few FBI agents, cool as ice, started snapping pictures of those ridiculous fake HOA signs. She'd hammered onto streetlight poles and tree trunks, evidence of her reign of terror. One of them even dug up her prized community standards enforcement manual. Can you imagine? She'd written it herself, printed it in full color, laminated it like it was some sacred text, and stuffed it with absurd rules like all patriotic displays must be approved for tone and aesthetic, and get this, only pastel colors are permitted for outdoor furniture, bright red chairs incite unrest. Who even thinks like that? Then came the door-to-door interviews, and holy cow, what a revelation. Turns out Karen and Ken had been busy little bees scheming for 6 whole months. They'd conned at least 15 residents, mostly sweet, trusting elderly folks, into believing there was a legit HOA mandate demanding biannual neighborhood enhancement contributions. Fancy talk for hand over your cash, or we'll ruin your life. Can you believe the gall? They had fake fee sheets dripping with bogus legal jargon, city approval stamps that were total phonies, and wait for it, an electronic payment system funneling every dime straight into an account under Karen's maiden name. Poor Mr. Donnelly, 2 houses down, who can barely hear his microwave beep, had been shelling out $300 for every 3 months. When the agents broke the news that it was all a sham, he burst into tears, not over the money, but because he thought he'd messed up by not following the rules. My heart just shattered for him. How could they do this to him? Then there's sweet Mrs. Patel. Oh, bless her. She'd been forced to repaint her entire house out of her own pocket because Karen declared her cheerful yellow paint too emotionally intense. Too intense? Are you kidding me? And don't get me started on the backflow fiasco. Karen and Ken didn't just tap into our private. Well, oh no, they went full rogue, trying to hook up 3 others too. They rigged it with a chaotic mess of underground hoses, half-buried PVC pipes, and swear to God what looked like spare parts from a kiddie pool pump. One well got contaminated, another was nearly sucked dry. How did no one get sick? It's a miracle. The FBI was all over it, snapping photos, taking soil samples, even digging up chunks of Karen's Zen maze to trace her shoddy plumbing. She screamed bloody murder. You're violating my sanctuary. But did anyone care? Nope, not a bit. Meanwhile, Ken, oh, he was in deep, way deeper than he ever dreamed. That little pistol he waved around? Not just unlicensed, it was stolen, reported missing 3 years ago from a pawn shop 2 states away. Stolen! Add that to impersonating law enforcement, brandishing a weapon, and a laundry list of elder harassment charges. And let me tell you, this guy's not just facing community service, he's toast. But the cherry on top? His fake security certification, he printed it himself and misspelled certified twice. Twice. What a clown. Back at our house, Grandpa sat on the porch, sipping sweet tea like he'd just weathered a Category 5. Karen's storm, and honestly, he had. He looked calm, that steady vet composure holding strong, but I could see it in his eyes. He was shaken. Not by Ken, not even by that gun pointed at him, but by the sheer jaw-dropping nerve of someone waltzing into our peaceful little world and twisting it into a neighborhood dictatorship overnight. He kept shaking his head, muttering under his breath, all that noise over a hose. Can you feel the weight of that? All he wanted was to tend his garden in peace? That night, I couldn't hold it in. I had to share this madness with the world. I uploaded the footage, not just Ken pulling the gun, but the whole insane saga, those fake signs, the laughable citations, the HOA threats, even Karen's pompous TED Talk style rant about restoring moral balance to cul-de-sacs. I edited it like a pro-sarcastic captions, dramatic music, the whole 9 yards, and called it Karen's Cult, How a Suburban Dictator Tried to Militarize a Garden Gnome. By morning, 50,000 views. By noon, 200,000. Local news called, then a national blog picked it up. My inbox exploded. Can you come on our podcast? Can we do a segment? Will Grandpa do an interview? Grandpa shot them all down with a firm no, but he did let me record one perfect line. I just wanted to water my lilies. That clip? Viral gold, pure, quiet defiance that hit everyone right in the feels. But just when I thought we'd hit the end, Ken locked up, Karen facing charges, the neighborhood finally breathing easy, I opened the mailbox, and bam! There it was, a letter, not typed. Oh no, handwritten in neat block letters on fancy monogram stationery. Addressed straight to me, it read, "You've embarrassed the wrong people. This isn't over. Signed the board." The board? What board? There was no board, never had been, which meant some shadowy someone out there wanted to pick up Karen's crown. Oh, they just made the dumbest mistake of their life. Did they really think I'd back down? That envelope sat on the kitchen table like a loaded mousetrap, daring us to touch it. Grandpa glanced at it once, shook his head with that wise, weary look, and went back to peeling an apple with his trusty pocket knife cool as ever. Mom, though, she was pacing like we were under attack, muttering about restraining orders and neighborhood cameras. Her nerves were shot. But me? I just stared at that letter and laughed hard. Not because it was funny, but because it was stupid, gloriously, aggressively stupid. After everything Karen exposed to 500,000 people online, Ken hauled off by the feds, some mystery nut still had the guts to resurrect this HOA nonsense, like a bad sequel nobody asked for. Didn't they see the curtain had already dropped? I kept the letter, of course, slid it right into my HOA hellscape folder, and scanned it for safekeeping. No fingerprints. I checked with Grandpa's old police auxiliary hobby kit, but it reeked of desperation and sniff, maybe lavender. Whoever wrote it was trying way too hard to sound official. The letterhead? Fake fancy, with an embossed crest that looked like a clip art eagle clutching a rake seriously. No name, just the board, like some secret society. But what board? The HOA was a mirage from the start, and Karen's scam had already been blown wide open. Still, this note acted like it. Came from an underground cabal of cul-de-sac tyrants. Did they hold meetings in a candlelit garage, draped in robes made from patio furniture covers? Ridiculous. The message was short but dripping with veiled threats. You've interfered with established operations, and the neighborhood cannot tolerate rule breakers. And my favorite? This will escalate if you continue your antagonism. Antagonism? Oh, please. I printed it out, taped it to the fridge like a kid's art project, poured myself a coffee, and got to work. If they wanted a war, they'd get one bring it on. This time, I wasn't just documenting. I was hunting, and I was fired up. First move, figuring out who'd be crazy enough to revive Karen's failed empire. I hit the neighborhood gossip mill. Retirement communities don't run on power lines. They thrive on porch chats and dog-walking whispers. I chit-chatted with Miss S. Alvarez while her Yorkie pranced around, helped Mr. Lin wrestle a stubborn trash bin, and boom, the rumors were flying. Someone had been spotted going door to door with a petition to reestablish order. Not that just scream wannabe dictator. They claimed they were filling the leadership vacuum left by Karen's downfall. But the kicker? They bragged about federal connections. Oh, really? That stopped me cold. How could they say that with a straight face? Two options. Either they were bluffing to sound tough, or they were twisting the fact that my uncle, the real deal FBI agent, had swooped in like a tactical nuke. The thought of someone countering that with their own law and order cosplay? Hilarious and dangerous. Who was this fool? I had to find out. I went old school with the surveillance game ring cams, doorbell footage, motion lights. Some folks still shared theirs on the neighborhood network, and a few had handed feeds to the feds during the Karen chaos. I poured over hours of video hours until I struck gold. There he was, a guy, mid-40s, receding hairline, smug strut, clutching a clipboard, wearing a polo with NCC stitched on it. He knocked, passed out papers, chatted folks up sometimes for minutes. In one clip, he nodded as a homeowner pointed angrily at our house. Caught you, buddy. I matched timestamps to his visits, then hit the streets myself, knocking, asking, digging. Most people clammed up. Nervous wrecks, one even whispered, I don't want any more trouble. But then, jackpot. A sweet old guy, too fed up to care, spilled it. The guy's name was Craig Donaldson, lived on the neighborhood's edge, worked in private security, and claimed he was launching the Neighborhood Compliance Council. Karen had handed him her playbook before her crash, and now he was trying to rebuild her scam with legitimacy and discretion. Translation? He wanted to run the con and make it look legal. Oh, Craig, you've got no idea who you're messing with. So I decided to pay Craig a visit, not to confront him. Oh no, not yet. I just had to see this operation for myself. Can you blame me? His house? Exactly what you'd picture from a guy drunk on delusions of authority. Flags flapping in the breeze, surveillance signs glaring at you like a challenge, and get this, a custom doormat barking, respect my rules or leave. Who does he think he is? I couldn't resist. I dropped a flyer in his mailbox, one I whipped up myself, bold and clear. Fake HOAs are illegal. Ask your lawyer before pretending to be the law. And you bet I signed it, FBI family. Oh yeah. If he wanted to flex fake federal connections, I was ready to throw that energy right back in his smug face. Take that, Craig. But Craig, he wasn't just puffing out his chest, he went full throttle. He started flooding the neighborhood with these ridiculous NCC bulletins, demands dressed up as memos, compliance check reminders, voluntary noise surveys, and wait for it, a whole schedule for patio aesthetic evaluations. Are you kidding me? It was like Karen all over again, but this time with a guy who probably narrated his life like he was the star of a Tom Clancy thriller. I could practically hear the dramatic soundtrack in his head. Then came the moment that changed everything. Oh, my heart still races thinking about it. Grandpa got a letter, demanding he remove his American flag garden stone. Not even the flag itself, mind you, just the little stone in his flower bed. Why? Because it violated visual uniformity expectations, they said. Can you believe the nerve? Grandpa stared at that paper for 10 long seconds, his face unreadable, then bam! He grabbed the phone and called my uncle. I don't know what he said. Those two have their own secret code, but the next morning, Craig's mailbox was gone. Poof! 1 minute it's standing there all proud and official. The next it's a pile of shattered plastic with a piece of duct tape slapped on it, scrawled with one word, nope. A warning? A prank? Maybe both, but oh, it felt so good. Did Craig back off? Ha, no way. He doubled down, escalated like a madman. One evening, Grandpa went to flip on the garden. Lights those soft, warm lights he loves, and boom, the whole circuit popped, fried, melted from the inside out. An electrician later confirmed it. Someone had tampered with the wiring. Dangerous? Yes. Stupid? Absolutely. Illegal? You bet. But predictable? Oh, totally. This was Craig's style. That night I was done waiting, I set up cameras everywhere. Not just the obvious ones, but sneaky ones, 2 trail cams, motion detectors, battery-powered sensors. I was ready, bring it on, Craig. And I waited, heart pounding, eyes peeled. 4 days later, oh my gosh, I caught him red-handed. There he was, Craig, creeping into our backyard at 2:00 a.m. with a flashlight and, seriously, a measuring tape. He was photographing our fence like some wannabe spy. I watched him on the monitor, jaw dropped, not because I was scared, oh no, but because this fool had just waltzed into the same trap Ken fell for. Did he really think he was untouchable? That no one would dare stand up to his petty little dictatorship? I grabbed my phone and called my uncle again. Game on. This time, we weren't just nabbing a fake cop, we were tearing down a whole shadow government. And Craig? He had no clue the next knock on his door wouldn't be mine, it'd be federal. Oh, the sweet anticipation. Craig's house? A suburban bunker straight out of a control freak's fever dream. Hedges trimmed into perfect geometric shapes, creepy, right? A driveway so pressure-washed it practically sparkled, and a front porch with a motion-activated speaker chirping, "Welcome to the NCC Command Center," every time you got close. What is this? A sci-fi movie? He'd gone all in, playing neighborhood overlord like a kid in a Batman, cape issuing tickets to teddy bears, except this guy wasn't 5. He was 46, divorced twice, and about to get a brutal wake-up call about what happens when you act like a mini-god in a neighborhood that's had enough. Bring it on, reality. When the agents rolled up, oh, it was glorious. No sirens, no chaos, just calm, quiet, surgical precision, 2 plain black cars, 4 agents in crisp suits, no flashy guns or shouting matches. Craig opens the door, headset on, clipboard in hand, looking like he's commanding a war room, smug as can be. 2 seconds later, his face crumples from cocky to confused. My uncle steps up, cool as ice, and hands him a folder, not an arrest warrant, not yet, just a notice of investigation for harassment, impersonating a municipal officer, and possible fraud. Craig stammers, tries to argue. Can you believe he asked if this was a First Amendment thing? An agent shuts him down cold. No, sir. This is a you lied to old people and committed wire fraud issue. Boom, mic drop. I stood across the street with Grandpa, watching it all unfold like the season finale of a show we didn't even sign up for. Grandpa sipped his tea, calm as ever, and muttered, takes a special kind of fool to pick up a cursed crown. And oh, how right he was. That fake HOA? It was a cursed crown, handed from one delusional tyrant to the next Karen to Craig, each thinking they could wield it. Smarter, sneakier, better. But they all underestimated one thing: how loud a retired vet's garden hose can roar when you mix it with just the right dose of petty vengeance. Didn't see that coming, did you, Craig? The real knockout punch? It came from inside. Quiet, polite Mr. Branson, who'd been one of the first to sign Craig's neighborhood order petition, turned whistleblower. Can you imagine the guilt eating at him? He spilled it all after realizing Craig was collecting compliance fees on prepaid Visa gift cards, untraceable, he claimed, to maintain the sanctity of the order. That's a real line from his NCC newsletter sanctity. He'd even drafted a charter for mandatory visual cohesion, fining people for Halloween decorations, garden gnomes, and get this, lawn chairs in bright colors. Branson handed over everything: emails, recordings, even an NCC spreadsheet titled Non-Compliance Fines, Projected Revenue. Oh, it was over for Craig. It didn't take long. The walls closed in fast. Cease and desist orders flew out. Residents were told to report any NCC contact to the feds. A county report was filed, and fraud charges loomed large. But what really broke Craig? Not the law, it was the neighborhood turning on him. Within days, a dozen houses erupted in rebellion, flags waving, garden signs popping up, Halloween skeletons dangling. One guy painted his mailbox neon green and rigged it with a speaker blaring circus music. Every time it opened, hilarious. Someone plopped a pink flamingo on Craig's lawn with a sign, "Free Bird HOA Survivor." Even the quiet ones joined in, fueled by the fall of two petty tyrants in a single month. Take that, Craig. Grandpa? He stayed cool, didn't say much, just headed to the garage, built a new planter box, and carved Liberty Grows here into the side. We planted it smack in the middle of the lawn, surrounded it with flowers, and lit it up with a solar spotlight glowing defiance. It became a neighborhood beacon. People walked by, nodded, snapped pics. Kids left painted rocks with smiley faces and freedom scrawls. One day, someone dropped off a tiny plastic eagle wearing sunglasses. I kept that little guy. Oh, it warmed my heart. But wait, it didn't stop there. A letter came from the city, not a threat, for once, but a commendation. Can you believe it? My HOA takedown footage and video had reached officials battling fake HOAs for years. They loved the evidence, the cool-headedness and surprise. My editing skills. They wanted our story as a case study to train municipal officers on spotting and smashing predatory schemes. Grandpa blinked when I read it, then chuckled. So we're a teaching tool now, and laughed so hard his iced tea nearly splashed everywhere. Priceless. I posted one last video, a short, snarky wrap-up called How to Dismantle a Dictatorship with a Garden Hose. No rage, no drama, just facts, sarcasm, and Grandpa's quiet wisdom. It had clips of fake citations, Craig's absurd NCC rules, and Karen's maze rotting into compost. I ended with Grandpa watering his lilies in a shirt reading, "Compliance this." Arrow pointing to his watering can pure gold. 1 million views in a week. Can you feel the triumph? And just when I thought it couldn't get sweeter, a knock at the door. A nervous young guy, early 20s, drove from out of state with an envelope. He hands it to Grandpa and says, "My dad used to live here. He was too scared to fight the HOA, but your video gave him his voice back." Inside, a handwritten thank you and a photo of his dad smiling with a little flag. The back read, "Thanks for reminding me dignity doesn't have an expiration date." Grandpa didn't cry, just nodded, said, "That's worth more than any medal," and invited him in for pie. That's my grandpa, no revenge, just no room for bullies. The neighborhood's free, now no fake signs, no threats, just a garden blooming brighter than ever. Every Sunday, Folks gather on Grandpa's porch with lemonade, lawn chairs, and stories, calling it Liberty Hour. No rules, no dues, just community. Listen close, and you'll hear that hose hiss in the evening, watering the lilies, with Grandpa whispering, "This is how you keep things blooming." That cursed crown, smashed, buried, replaced by something real. Justice, it thrives with patience, stubbornness, and a splash of petty revenge. Oh, what a victory!